1963 Impala Restoration, Part 4. Hit that like and subscribe. We're going to pick up where we left off on the last video. We had disassembled the frame, all the suspension components. Now we're degreasing all of that stuff, getting ready to send out to media blast and then powder coat. We're going to be reassembling that frame probably next week or maybe the week after. And here's everything degreased, ready to go. Yeah, last time you see the rusty crusty. Next time it'll be beautiful. Okay, so in this video, we have some damage on the frame, some on the front frame rail, the frame horn, I should say, and on this rear frame rail section. We're going to straighten all that out. And there's kind of see when you have a guide against it, see how much it's bent. Well, let's take care of that. Okay, so how we're going to do this, we're going to use oxygen and acetylene. So I'm hooking up the regulators. Now, for those of you who may not be real familiar with oxygen and acetylene, I'll give you a quick background. Now, the oxygen and acetylene comes with different tips, interchangeable tips. Now, this is a cutting torch tip. And this is a brazing tip for welding. And what we're going to be using is called a rosebud or a heating tip. That'll put out a lot of flame. You'll see in a second. Okay, and the tips interchange really easily. And we're getting that rosebud on. And we always want to just hand tighten that. We don't want to use a wrench or anything like that. Okay, now I'm going to use this jack stand and this piece of square stock kind of as an anvil. And then we're going to cinch this down, try to squeeze it as much as we can so when we start to heat this area, things will pull down really easily. Now, one thing about metal straightening is if you're using a hammer and you hit unsupported metal, it's going to distort the metal, cause a lot of damage. You're not really going to do what you intend to do unless there's some type of anvil underneath. And that's basically what we're doing here, using that piece as an anvil. So now we're going to get some heat on this. And when you heat steel, it makes it really malleable and we can move it around easily. And it doesn't take a lot. And you always want to put the heat in the correct spot. Now this is a dolly with a handle on it pretty much. We use that a lot in the collision and bodyworking industry. And it's not a one-shot deal. Okay, so you don't want to try to do all of the work in one or two massive hits. We want to work the metal back into shape. The metal has kind of a memory. It wants to go back into the shape that it was formed. So what we want to do is to try to help it go back on its own. And now I've switched tools. This is actually a fender hammer. And all of these tools have a lot of different names, so if you call it something else, well, that's fine too. And you can see little by little, we're getting it worked back into shape. And flattening it off. Now you can really see what I'm talking about, using that piece as an anvil. Okay, there's a little bulge on the back side yet. We're going to just flatten that out. Now that we have our shape back, flattening out that back piece is going to be really easy. And we'll start with the highest point. We don't want to heat a super large area and cause a bunch of distortion. So we will take care of this area, and this will kind of retain the shape of that hole. If we heated a lot of that area, well, that's going to crush that hole and it's going to oblong. And now we're going to work on that little 90-degree bend there. Bring back a little bit of crispness to it. And we use the rosebud tip because that heats up a large area pretty quickly. And you'll notice I'm not wailing away. You don't want to wail away on the metal. You want to push the metal to where you want it to go. And again, you've seen how many steps I've used to get the metal or the shape back into this section of frame. And we're getting close. Get that top rail back into shape. I think this will be the last heat.
Tell me when that starts getting red.
And now we can work on that last high spot, or the last little bulge there. And whenever you're heating up the metal, you want to be quick, because when it starts to cool down, well, then it starts to lose its, let's say, elasticity. When it's hot, you can work it really easily. You don't have to use a lot of force. The colder it gets, well, the more force you have to use. Okay, that's it. I think that's good enough. Now the other little indentation there, that's a factory. It's on both sides. We'll check for straightness. Not bad. Okay, now I'll show you the front section that I repaired. The frame rail was bent up slightly. Now this is a kind of a two-part video. For those who only come to watch the Impala videos, well, I have another video that's really, that you guys could get a lot of use out of. So, well, what I'm trying to say is I have a video to tell a quick way to measure your 68 to or 58 to 64 Impala frame for squareness. And there's several different ways, but this is a very quick way. And I'm just going to add this onto the end of the video. I think it'll help some of you guys out. And what this is called the next dimension. Now, this is the actual end of the frame. Past that is called the frame horn. That's where your front bumper bolts onto. Now, this is the rear of the frame. And I'm calling it that because everything to this point is boxed. So that's your strength. Everything past the point where we just fixed, that's the end of the frame. And that can be bent easily. So you don't want to take a measurement from those areas. You always want to take it as close as you can to the end of the frame, and you need to find a reference point that is the same on both sides. And then also the same on the both sides at the front of the frame. Okay, now we don't want to use that because that is a body mount bolt or mount. So what we want to do, yeah, you have to excuse me, man. Allergies in Texas, they've been kicking my butt all week. I can barely say my own name. Okay, so we want to find a point in the front. Well, that's not a very good point. You can use whatever point that you desire. I'm just showing you points that I'm going to use for this video. And it's like I said, this is a first step measurement. There are other measurements to determine if a frame is square. This is just one, and this is the simplest. So I'm going to use that hole, and that is the shock mount hole. So that's going to be the same on both sides. What we want to do, now this is a tip. This chisel will go all the way through the frame completely. And because frames are irregular, it's not just a straight linear shot. We're going to be running a tape measure. So this chisel through the frame, I can raise or lower, and that is going to give me a straight shot with the tape measure to the very front. Now we don't want to have a lot of wiggle room in that chisel or whatever you're using to go through the hole, and that chisel matches that hole really well. So that'll be a good reference point, and it's the same on the other side. And this is basically what we're doing. We're taking two measurements diagonally, and that's called the next dimension. Now you can see I have my chisel set. Get above that hump there in the frame, because we need a nice straight line. Take a measurement, and you want the tape measure to be taut. Okay, we'll get our measurement. And I'm taking a measurement from two different points just for redundancy. And we want to write those down. That's the first measurement, and now the second measurement. And basically we want to repeat it on the opposite side. Now frames, this is something you have to keep in mind. Okay, this particular frame is the 1963, which means it was made in 1962. So all of that age and all of that wear and tear, and especially being a convertible, all of these years, you're probably not going to get an exact measurement on both sides. So that's not to worry. What you want to look for, if you're over a quarter of an inch out, say you take a measurement from one direction then the other direction, and there's a discrepancy of more than a quarter of an inch. When you get up into the half-inch range, yeah, that's way out. You've got an issue. The frame is either diamond or twisted. Something's going on. You need to check out further. Now, this particular frame is an eighth of an inch difference from one side to the other. That's totally acceptable. Not a problem. Hey, follow us for the next part. And thanks for all our subscribers. Thank you for watching.